be now.
Yep, you're on.
I'd like to welcome everybody to the August Service Delivery Committee meeting. Susan, welcome to you on the Zoom. Nice to see you. I have apologies today from Hazel, Councillor Hazel and Councillor Philip Coles. And on top of that, Liz might be in and out part-time, and I think Jim is leaving at a certain stage to go. So,
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm just going to be jumping into some of the submissions for the Regional Council
yeah,
public transport plan.
Okay,
thanks.
So move and seconder, please, for those apologies. Thank you, Roger. Thank you, Andrew. All those in favour say aye. Against, carried. Are there any disclosures of members' interest that they want to declare? There being none. Are there any late items?
Sorry, Graham, there's a road closure for Rangiovia, but it's from Waikato Tainui, not from Ngāti Apakura, so I don't think I've got a conflict.
Oh, thanks.
Just notifying it of it.
Yeah. It's a later agenda item, so yeah, that's fine. I don't think we'll take that as a late item. We'll just deal with it. Yeah. Oh, conflict. No, I don't think so. No. We're not talking a couple of. We're not talking a couple of $1 million.
Cool. Thank you.
Move in a second, please. The confirmation order of the meeting. There is no changes, Dawn. I think we're good to go. Thank you, Claire. Thank you, Bruce. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Tab 5 is the confirmation of the open minutes. Somebody move and second that they be a true and correct record, please. Thank you, Roger. Thank you, Liz. All those in favour say aye. And then 5.1 are the minutes from Tuesday, the 21st of June. We could just go through those if anybody has any issues with them. 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. All good? Yep. I've already moved in second. Yes. Do you want to second? No, I've moved in. No, it's all right. Yeah, okay. Tab 6. Is it? Yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah. Okay, so we have Jim as an addition apology. I thought he was coming and going, so no, fine, thank you. Tab 6 is the Transportation Activity Report. Thank you, Eric. We don't have Brian with us today, so Eric will be leading. And alongside him, we have Paul. Oh, we haven't seen you for a while. Nice to catch you.
Thank you, Chair and members of the committee. I guess I can take this report as read. Are there any queries?
It's a damn good report. What are the plans for council to deal with the roads? I know there's been a lot of wet weather, and you can't do everything at once. Are things on track to do some of the bad areas?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Our roads are actually in pretty good shape relative to others, but we have got a few spots that are problematic. Most of them are being addressed. The one that's sort of caught us a little bit unaware was the detour on Stadaway 39 for the trucks around that bridge, and that's given us a little bit of a headache on a section of Nahanapuru Road. The swamps over to Cambridge are also deteriorating seasonally, and we'll be tidying them up this summer, early summer, for the swamps. So Waka Kotahi are paying for the repairs on the Hanapuri Road. I understand, we're negotiating
Okay.
with them.
Yeah. And Paul, just an aside on that, we've had a couple of crashes up the Totoroa Kirapiro Road due to State Highway 1 being closed. Is there any issues on that road that need to be tidied up in terms of visibility or anything? I don't know anything about the crashes, but that's a real test of that road, and it is a road that has to take traffic when there's a problem on State 1. Have you had a look at that, or do you know anything about those?
Yeah, so they're detouring State Highway 1 for a week. They've done it for several periods, for quite extended. It's the latest method of operating for traffic management is, can you do a detour? And Waka Kotahi are finding out yes, but sometimes the costs in relation to crashes and maintenance are actually higher than managing the traffic management on their work site. It's happening across the country where quite large volumes, obviously the state highways carry the bigger portion of the traffic, are being pushed onto detour routes, and there's work being done nationally to identify how to identify a suitable detour.
So just going back to my question about that particular road, will you guys go out and have a look and work with them to see what the pinch points are? Because it is a local road, and a heck of what about 170 truck and trailer loads of aggregate come out of there on top of the, so that's what I'm after. I'm after the people that ring me and say, what's council doing?
Yeah. So, Mr. Chair, so so that's Te Aotearoa Road is the one causing the problems because it's narrower. So Kirapiro Road has been built for the quarries.
Yes.
And that, apart from the intersection of State Highway 1, apart from that, it's performing okay. So we've tackled that largely from the safety angle. We have expressed concerns, and they have, I understand it, done temporary speed restriction, and it's being monitored, I think, daily by the Wakute contractor. And I understand, again, it's a cost recovery for any cost we incur.
Okay.
It's the same as the Hanapuri Road.
Roger had a question, please. Sorry, you can go next, Luke. Sorry.
Yeah, thanks through you, Chair. All of these diversions that are coming up, of course, we'll have now that the bridge contract has been determined, when are we going to be able to go out to the community with the actual plan of management of traffic and partial road closures and partial bridge closures? Because, there's a lot of interest out there in what's happening when that bridge work starts.
Thank you. Yes. So once we award the contract for the bridge, we will have a contractor that we can work with. It's a little bit of a convoluted route, but the contractor has to tell us the scaffolding they need to do the job safely and what it weighs. We then work out how much is left capacity-wise on the bridge, and there's a little bit of a backwards forwards as to how small we can make the contracted sections and they can still do the work successfully.
Mr. Chair, I was just going to suggest that maybe we talk about the high level bridge when we get to the item, because it's an agenda item later today.
Is that one, Paul? No, Lou was next, and then Marcus.
Thank you, through the chair. Just a question on closed circuit television. We are interested to find out what the timeframes are. There's a group meeting in Te Awamutu regularly of retailers that are concerned about RAM raids, etc. And one of the issues they're bringing up is the incompatibility of all of the closed circuit televisions operating, and they would like to see more of these up and operating. So I just wondered what we're actually doing on that issue.
Maybe we could discuss that on the CCTV item later on today.
Yeah. You don't know what question they're going to ask, so I don't want to be rude.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot of public interest in, when are they going to find out about the road, which is nothing to do with that tender item. So I think, some form of comment from transportation about what's happening there would be worthwhile.
But would it be better to tell people that we haven't allotted or approved a contract at this stage, and that's where it sits until the whole thing's ready to rock and roll? I mean, they go, together. The whole thing goes together.
I still think they're interested in an update,
Well,
which is what we had there about the challenges that they're going to be faced with. So
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
I still think.
But you don't want to give them a false indication of what might happen, and it doesn't happen. Marcus, did you want to?
Yeah, I'll talk about something that's actually in the city and Dryden. I just like to say I'm really happy with the road safety initiatives that have been happening and the waste minimization projects and things. We're really hitting the mark there, and the report's really good. And Sally's enthusiasm is just, well, both Sally's for road safety and waste minimization. It just really shines through, and I think it's really good what we're doing in our communities. So yeah.
Perhaps I'd like to just follow up with the issue of the bridges. They're going very well. And there's a lot of positivity out there, particularly in Memorial Park. I had a meeting the other day with the Memorial Park Maintenance Committee, and they were quite pleased with the approaches that we're doing and the way it is proceeding.
Lou, there's been a little bit of angst about the height of them, but perhaps Dawn might like to cover them, or Paul, of why the height is there. It's just that, people need to know what the safety things are. Yeah, thanks.
Thank you, through the chair. The height of the bridge was established because, of course, it needs a building consent, and under the Building Act, the bridge is required to be a half metre above the 100-year flood level. So in doing that design process, that was the levels arrived at. But what it does mean is accommodation works are needed in terms of getting the footpath up and meeting that level. So, but those accommodation works will be included in the construction contract.
Saw your hand up, Susan?
Yeah, thank you, Graham. Just a great report. Thank you, guys. Just quick question about the Pollard Road lights. Do you have any idea when they'll be finally electrified? I said they've been installed, but electrified would be obviously a different thing altogether. It's on page 19 of our agenda.
Yeah, through the chair. We don't have an idea at the moment. I'll find out. I can report back.
If you could, that'd be great. I know it's something that that community's been looking forward to having installed and active for some time. So thanks very much, Eric.
Any other? It's a damn good report, Eric. Really good. Yep.
Eric, just compliments for the Harbour School improvement. That's fantastic. Is it Wakatotai's responsibility on the opposite side with trucks? That last accident, they take out the safety barriers just because there's nowhere to go when they're turning to West Road heading north. Is that their responsibility? Do you have any input?
Yeah, thanks for the chair. Yes, so that barrier outside the school's been hit twice. The first hit was very small. The second one was quite substantial. So the indications was that if it was a car, it was going at significant speed. So so it has been handed over to Wakatotei for the repair, but we're considering a very slight design change to flare it to avoid that issue. And it goes through a post-construction safety audit process. So that could be some weeks away.
That's good. Thank you.
Okay. Any other issues? Need a mover and a seconder, please, that the report be accepted. Thank you, Marcus. Thank you, Mike. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Against, carried. Thank you. Thanks, Bruce. Tab 7, Cambridge Connections, Future Transport Plan. Who's bringing this and who's doing this? Rachel. Hi, Rachel. Good to see you. Do not. That's the one.
Is that better? Kia ora koutou elected members. Some key points about the report. We're really pleased to be now kicking off Cambridge Connections. As elected members will be aware, the recently adopted Waipa Transport Strategy confirmed that planning is needed for additional river crossing capacity in Cambridge in the longer term. The strategy also concluded that some parts of the Cambridge transport network are coming under pressure from the impacts of growth, and a business case is needed. That business case, and for ease of understanding, we're calling Cambridge Connections, is now underway and will be completed over the next 12 months. To maximise funding opportunities, the project will follow the Waka Kotahi business case approach, and some of the councillors will be aware of that, having been involved in the Western Arterial project business case last year, and we'll be following that same process, and that confirms delves more into the problems and the benefits. It goes through a process of optioneering where you have a look at a whole range of options, shortlist those to some shortlist options, build up a financial case and a preferred way forward. And as part of that, we'll be looking at the preferred location for a third bridge that delivers the most benefits and the least environmental impacts. Our project stakeholder group is proposed for the project, and that will help identify and confirm problems, opportunities and transport options moving forward. And as part of the report recommendations, we're seeking councillors to represent Cambridge community interests on the project stakeholder group. And now I'll just open up to any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Well,
Good, Rachel, thank you. I had a question in regards to the iwi representation. I
Yes.
see that you're proposing that there be 3 councillors involved in this project, but only 1 iwi representative. I just wonder how between Ngāti Hawa, Ngāti Raukawa, Ngāti Karoki Kahukura particularly, we're expected to find just 1 representative to, and then if we also tie in Waikato Tainui, which has a distinct connection in terms of the river, how it is that we're going to find 1 representative.
Thank you, Councillor Harris. That's not the intention at all. I've had a discussion already with Gary Knighton, and he's expressed a representation, and I'll work with Gary with him in terms of finding the people representing the different iwi interests in the district.
Okay,
Yeah.
so then can I take it that where it talks about project stakeholder group representative, that will be changed to representatives?
Yes,
Cool.
yes,
Okay.
absolutely.
I did have
Apologies for that.
one other query as well.
Yeah, thank you.
And that other query, and I apologise for medical reasons, I haven't been at the spatial plan, but I note that the spatial plan has a representative, and I wondered whether whether these two whether the spatial plan would cease to exist at the time that this project was going on. What are the timings of the two, and why should the spatial plan have a representative on this group? But yeah, that was my question, is that isn't the spatial plan due to be reported back to council? And if it is, then is there a need for a representative of the spatial plan to be on this Cambridge Connections as well?
Yeah, I take
And also given that the recommendations are already to have 3 councillors, and I suspect Cambridge in the main, on the group anyway. So those were just 2 queries that I had. Thanks, Graham.
Yeah, thank you. We'll look into that. That's a really good point. At the time of writing the report, there was a brainstorming as to who would be appropriate, but we'll talk into those synergies and make sure we have the most value out of the stakeholder group. Thank you.
Liz, do you want to, you had your hand up?
Oh, look, I was just going to say that, look, really, really pleased to see this item on the agenda. It's something that's really, really important to Waipa at the moment, that we continue to move forward and progress, a lot of the growth issues that I guess that we see in particular for Cambridge. So my only comment really is that when we're looking at these representatives, that we are looking at this Waipa wide. this is a critical, piece of work. It's also a very costly piece of work. And there's some high emotions out there in our communities. I just would like to make sure that we have really good widespread representation, endorsing what Bill has said. Yes, I'm sure that, the 3 people, it doesn't have to be 3, it could be more. I guess I just want to just keep everyone's minds open around that. But the other really important thing is that this is, for me, around the table, I just want to make sure we put our really good people forward. There's a lot of detail, and a lot of the work that you've done, Roger, we've heard over the years. There's a huge amount of detail around this, and I think we're going to have to be, those who are selected need to be really dedicated around that detail, because there'll be immense public interest in this.
Clear. I saw you, Susan. Hang on. Yep. Go.
Thanks very much. Yeah, so I've got a few questions. The first one is, when is the estimated end of life of the high level bridge? Because it mentions that as one of the, reasons for doing this. Yeah.
Here comes the cavalry.
Thank you, Paul.
Thank you. Mr. Chair, Victoria Bridge is able to be maintained pretty much indefinitely. That's what it can do. I mean, we could keep it going forever and it will still be the same width, the same loading restrictions. At some stage, it's going to need a new deck, but we did the X-raying of the steelwork in the deck, and it's all in good shape. Yeah. So, but an event, some sort of natural event could cause us issues.
Yeah, yeah. So it's prudent to plan for it.
Okay.
Yeah, but really we don't have a firm date that we're sort of saying by that time we need to have an alternative in place. Yeah, okay.
Thanks, Paul.
Yeah, no, it's that kind of says to me that it's more about the growth issues and managing the traffic. Yeah.
Might pay to stay there, Paul, because Claire's got a couple of questions that might.
Well, I mean, the other point I wanted to ask about the, input into it is there's no representatives around the schools, like school traffic or the Ministry of Education and their bus routes and plans for that kind of transportation component. I understand it's really significant actually, and it creates those morning and afternoon peaks as well. So, because my understanding from what you said, Rachel, about the optioneering, like that's a really important part of this project work that we need to have pretty open mind and take a really broad approach at what might be workable options. Yeah. So is there any plan to involve like schools or the Ministry of Education in the project group?
I mean, I guess there's 2 ways that we could encourage or try and get Ministry of Education is actually being around the table, or actually having separate meetings with them as well, and which we could consider as well. I mean, like other stakeholders, Chamber of Commerce, for example, and that's sort of about testing those options that the project stakeholder group come up with. I guess the most effective stakeholder groups are relatively tight, because you, along the way, you have to make those decisions to keep moving through the Whakakatahu business case process. So if it's a larger group, it may be more difficult to facilitate those decisions going forward. So we have to have a think about that.
Yeah. Thanks. Because
hang on.
So like with the Chamber of Commerce, but what about a member of the community board? Because we want to give the community boards more action. It could be all councillors. Someone from the Cambridge Community Board would be.
Yeah, I'd support that as well. Yeah, so I've kind of established that this project is really taking a broad look at the traffic issues in Cambridge. And we're also aware that there have been some targets set for reducing transport emissions. We've heard that Auckland set a target of 64% reduction by 2035, and that the New Zealand overall target is 41%, okay? And that's based on 2019 figures. So I'm hoping that this work will actually look at ways that we could achieve similar transportation reductions. Yeah.
Absolutely. That's a key part of the study, is to address the climate change and carbon reduction emissions through the study. So we'll be looking at where we get benefit from walking, cycling, public transport, those sort of benefits as well through the project.
Yeah, no, thanks a lot. And so this comes to the delicate part of my contribution, is that I'm concerned that there's been a number of Cambridge councillors that have strongly advocated publicly for a third bridge. In fact, I have in front of me a Cambridge News item that was published in November 2021, says there's two councillors are new bridge advocates, okay, which is Councillor Gordon and Councillor Coles. And I'd be really concerned that their predetermination would make it very difficult to actually take that broader view on the optioneering that's needed. Because it's not just about a third bridge, it's about managing the transport emissions.
May I take a point of order there? Councillor Clare has identified two councillors, supposedly, but in fact, the mayor and the deputy mayor have both gone out and said there is the need for a third bridge in Cambridge. The transportation strategy states that there is a need for a third bridge. So I think the identification of two individuals around this table, from amongst many that have said there is a need for the third bridge, is in fact, I don't think it's acceptable.
Okay.
I was quoting an article that doesn't mention the mayor or the deputy mayor, that just mentions.
If you'd done a research, you'd have found that there are many other articles. So you've been rather selective on the article that you've chosen.
Well, I don't think there is a conflict of interest really. We've all, known that there's going to be a bridge at some stage. It's just a case of when it was going to happen and how it was going to happen. Now I've got Susan up there, but somebody more legal than me will be able to tell me. But I don't think.
In fact, Susan went public with the need for a third bridge as well in a recent statement.
Thanks, Susan.
Yeah, thank you, Graham. Look, I take your point, Claire. I guess it's all shades of grey, though, isn't it? I mean, in terms of our recent transport strategy, it has clearly come out saying that there is a need. So, it's a tricky one, isn't it, about that predetermination and being able to be open-minded around what those options would be in the course of that work. So, I mean, I hear your point, but I suspect that there's probably a fair number of people around our table who accept, as well as that strategy, that accept that it is a likely eventuality. With that said, I just had a couple of questions myself, Rachel. Your great report, couple of things, couple of sort of administrative kind of things. Firstly, the numbering's a little bit wonky and I got really confused. Maybe it's my very small brain, I'm not sure. But and then the second thing is on page 56, the link there doesn't work to the procurement in terms of procurement plan options and strategy. So I wonder if maybe we can make sure that's working.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Yeah, but my more substantive kind of question is around that time frame and costs. It strikes me, and I know that but I mean, you only need to read the document to see there's an extraordinary amount of work to be done, and it's very complex, and it's lots of moving parts, lots of stakeholders, and variety of options to consider. But I guess the pressure that we're all hearing around our table to resolve issues in Cambridge makes me have to ask the question, is this really going to take 12 months? And I mean, that's quite a long time. And what's the projected time frame after that? And the second question is the cost, 300,000, is that, I mean, how does that compare with the cost for the Western Arterial work that we did?
Do you want to mention about the Western Arterial or?
Yeah, through the chair. Unfortunately, I don't have those details up front of mind, I'm afraid, in terms of the cost of the Western Arterial business case. But you're correct, Councillor O'Regan, it is very complex. The level of work that's needed in terms of transport modelling, transport professionals in terms of providing us with good advice and we're already in a data collection phase, so we're already incurring some costs in that area as well, is that this sum has been developed based on an expectation of what that cost will be. It may be less, but you know, we've gone for a number that we believe will cover what we believe to be a very complex project. With respect to the time frame, certainly, you know, we talk about 12 months, but we're already, you know, in effect, sort of almost 2 months into this year. There's already work underway in terms of the point of entry document, but we've got to work through a relationship with a key stakeholder in Whakakotahi. So yeah, I'm, you know, whilst June next year may look a long way away, you know, as you say, there are a lot of moving parts and a lot of stakeholders to keep informed and connected with through this process to make sure it's robust as possible, but that everyone buys into the outcome that the business case delivers.
Okay, it's just that, you know, I'm obviously pretty mindful, as I'm sure other members are, of the closure for painting and other maintenance of the high level bridge and the pressure that's going to put on this whole deal. And you know, if we're still sort of saying it's 12 months away or 10 months as you suggested, you know, we're going to get put under a lot of pressure. And there's already a lot of criticism that we've set in our hands on this one. So I'm just sort of flagging that. And the other thing, in terms of that high level bridge and low level bridge kind of scenario, is somebody able to provide me with the current traffic counts in terms of usage of both? I'm not sort of sure anymore. I know that there was an assertion that the Ferguson Bridge, low level bridge, was underutilised or not at capacity. Are we able to get some current data around what the use of both those bridges is currently?
Through the chair, absolutely, I can get that information through to you. If not before, then certainly by Friday and the Friday mail out this week, get that most recent traffic count data.
Oh, that's awesome, because I suspect the high level bridge might be being used more than what we'd perhaps previously thought now. Thanks, Dawn, and thank you, Rachel. It's a great report.
Thank you.
Phil?
Yeah, and I also noted in regards to Susan's question, Susan, is that you also wanted to get some data from the new Southern Expressway Bridge. And I thought that was an appropriate time for getting that sort of data information.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll be pulling all the data available from the traffic model. We've just done some Bluetooth tracking of origins and destinations of trips in Cambridge, which is a really good resource because it shows us how long trips are typically on daily trips and during the whole entire day, those sort of things. So we'll be pulling all that existing information together to help inform those problems that are identified through the project stakeholder group.
Thanks, Rachel. Roger.
Yep, it's on.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Through you, Chair.
Thanks, Paul.
Yeah, I really welcome this, Rachel. As you know, I've had a particular interest in transport. And I'd just like to say that it's not only about the third bridge. You know, the location of a bridge is important, but it's about the whole transport network through Cambridge and looking at the areas of congestion and pinch points that we currently have, which there are now an increasing number. It's also about the public transport provision within Cambridge and how that's going to affect all the traffic and the achievement of the urban mobility walking and cycling strategy over the next 10 years, which will have impact. I've been shared, I think before the election 3 months started, with the actual traffic counts on the three bridges and on the BP area of Victoria Road. And I can tell you that the combined traffic cross river during peak times across the both bridges has actually increased, and it's something like 80% capacity now. So the answer to the question about whether or not the Ferguson Bridge is underutilized. It's really, really growing on that bridge, and the combined traffic is growing. And also the impact of the restriction of the roundabout with the increased traffic from the south coming and hitting that Victoria Bridge as well. So yeah, really, really interested in participating in this if council selects me as one of the representatives. Really keen to go forward with that. Yeah, thank you.
Andrew?
Thanks, Graham. Yeah, thanks, Rachel. And look, having been involved in the Western Arterial project along with Lou and Marcus and others, yeah, the process is a really good one. So I'm confident that a lot of options will be explored. I think there's even more dynamics in play now than there was back then, even though it's only a relatively short time ago. And, you know, we have to be aware that I totally agree with Roger. It's not just about a third bridge. It's about transport connections in Cambridge. The name is a very good one. But if there's going to be a third bridge anytime in the near future, then Waka Kotahi funding has to be on board. It'll be a ridiculous project for us to undertake on our own, I feel. That's possibly not the best terminology, but it would be a very difficult project for us to fund on our own. Yeah, so, and coming back, you know, Claire, I support your comments to a point on the predetermination issue. I think there is a difference between acknowledging, as Liz and Jim and Susan have done, that the transport strategy acknowledges that there's, you know, going to be a necessary for a third bridge at some point, and to campaigning on it in your election, you know, process campaign. So yeah, that's just my 2 cents worth.
I think it's important that people understand, because the average ratepayer out there that talks to me, they don't understand the process of what we're going through. Waka Kotahi have got critical principles on traffic density before they 50% fund a big project like this. It'd be absolutely foolish for Waipā District Council to take it on themselves and enforce that high cost on all of the Waipā ratepayers. It's simply unaffordable for ratepayers. And don't forget, it's funded district-wide. The bridge is as important to the people in Te Awamutu as it is to the people in Cambridge. And that's why I'm really keen to have someone like Claire come onto this committee so that she can have her input into it. And once people can grasp that there's so much money at stake and the impact on their rates, I'm sure they will say the best thing is to wait for the business case to be done with Waka Kotahi, come in on that, and then we can all be happy with the funding and the ratepayers won't get whacked. Michael. I've seen you, Susan. Michael first.
Thank you, through the chair. Yeah, thanks for the report also. And just to clarify, because I think you've answered it well, Paul, but I was sort of under the impression that there was a whole lot of rhetoric around this bridge had a shelf life. And that's the reason for another crossing. And I've always been against the term third bridge, but it looks like it is a third bridge. So what we're saying is, I just want to get this clarified, that if a new bridge is built, that the expectation is that quite possibly the existing Victoria Bridge will continue as a transport vehicle, transport bridge. So that in fact, I'm asking, are you thinking there will be three bridges? Because in my mind, I was thinking this three bridge thing is a bit of a myth, and that Victoria Bridge will be retired into a cycling, walking type bridge. And the third bridge in a better position with greater capacity would actually be a second bridge, effectively. So just give us some clarification on your thinking there, please.
Through the chair, if I might pick up that one. Sorry. I think you're right in terms of the Victoria Bridge. I mean, it's such a critical structure to us. It's much loved by the community. It is a heritage structure that will always retain it for some purpose. So whether that be walking and cycling, only walking and cycling in the future, it may have some real benefits and being utilised in that way. So I do think that is probably a really likely future use for the bridge structure.
Yeah, I don't think we have communicated that very well. And the people I've talked to, I've sort of said, I don't see this as a third bridge. It is a second bridge in terms of what you're thinking, in terms of vehicle movements. So I think if that's what we're really thinking, and this is an open meeting, we really need to restructure, from our stickers that people have got through to the rhetoric in this room, that it's actually not a third bridge in terms of transport, probably. It's an alternate bridge to the Victoria Bridge.
May I ask for a point of clarification?
Yeah, sure.
Through you, Mr. Chair. Rachel, having read this, I can't point it out where it actually is, but I think the recommendation or the suggestion is that Waka Kotahi will be involved in this study right from its inception. Thank you. Yes, it is indeed. Thank you.
Absolutely, critically important.
Thank you. Susan?
Sorry. Hey, I'm not sure if there was any, because obviously not being in the chambers this morning, not sure if there was any discussion had before the meeting about who would be appropriate, but I certainly would endorse having Claire sit on this group, and I think we'd be foolish to not ask Roger if he was willing to. He has some pretty in-depth understanding on this topic, and I think it would be appropriate to have him. I think Liz would be fantastic too, just in terms of her sort of cross district connections, and particularly obviously because she's a Cambridge councillor. So that's my 10 cents worth. I think those three would be fabulous.
Thank you, Bill.
Can I just ask for the more experienced people at the table to give me a bit of an understanding about the timeframes in terms of this? Because if we nominate 3 councillors now, any or all of them aren't re-elected, what is the situation there? Do they then automatically come off that group? And tied into that, Rachel, would be my question about how much work is going to be done between now and the election, or needs to be done between now and the election, for us to make a decision to put people's names next to those 3 councillors that you put into the resolution. So that's my question, because I don't understand how, like committing the next council, we are actually committing the next council now if we put names there. I'm supportive of the resolution that says we have 3 councillors, with the understanding that we're going to have 3, we're going to have more iwi representatives. I'm supportive of that resolution now. I wasn't at the start of this debate, but I still feel a little uncomfortable without knowing the timing requirements for the work that you're expecting the councillors to be involved in prior to the election, and whether this is not the determination of the people involved should not be something for the new council to make a determination on.
Well, but business has to keep going, and if there's a change, there will be a change. Dawn can come in and answer that, please.
Thank you. Through the chair, it is our intention to get this work underway because we understand the criticality of the timeline. We're hoping to get at least one workshop completed prior to the 8th of October, and this allows that participation to happen. But absolutely, if there is any requirement for change post-election, then we will be coming back to the committee into the new triennium to look for those new appointments.
Just a quick.
Can I ask for a point of clarification again through you, Mr. Chair? And that is, my understanding is that all council committees at the end of the triennium or beginning of the new triennium, the membership of all council committees are actually reviewed to reflect the current council membership. It is a council committee.
No, it's not an official.
Well, even the working groups are reviewed as well, like the housing group.
Do you have a question, Mark? Oh, sorry, Dawn.
I was going to say through the chair, you're absolutely right. I guess we've got a number of these working groups that we'll need to have a look at into the new triennium. Urban Mobility Governance Group is another one.
Marcus.
So will a member of the Cambridge Community Board be on this committee, or is it, because I mean, I'd like to see maybe 2 councillors, 1 community board member or something like that, because I think this is a real chance for the Cambridge Community Board to step up and you know, we've been talking about giving them more powers and actions and stuff. They have a member, because they're there to represent the, you know, community's views on council.
Hang on.
Yeah, just as a suggestion, perhaps we could add that. I don't think there's a limit on the number of people that can go on it, so.
We have to hire the town hall.
Yeah, I just don't want to see, I don't want everybody on it, every man's dog, but I just think we've been talking about the community boards and stuff and giving them more powers. And I think maybe 2 councillors and a community board member or however that works. I think that would be quite good just to give them a chance.
If that's the recommendation, at the moment, the
we put that on the bottom of the screen?
The community board is a group that will obviously inform through meetings and test ideas. But if you believe, you know, the recommendation is to have them around the table.
Well, my feeling is that for things like this coming to council, it should be councillors and community boards actively participating on these important decisions, because this is like the transport strategy for Cambridge. A person from the Cambridge Community Board would be, I thought, would be quite important to be on there to provide that input.
Okay.
Sorry, Lou.
Well, thank you very much for the chair. I absolutely agree with Councillor Marcus on this issue, because I think the big thing about this is going to be public communication, the ability to get out there and just have everybody being made aware of the options. I agree with Councillor Brown with the fact that we do need Whakatagi right from the start. You know, we've got to keep them on the roll and keep them with it, because as a council, we would not have the ability to put that amount of debt onto our rates and ask our rate base to fund it. So I would be very, very supportive of what you just said, Marcus. Thank you very much. And I think that our community guide would actually offer that difference and the ability to communicate perhaps a little bit more readily with their community.
Can I raise a point as well? I'm totally in agreement with the community board. However, I think we've got 4 Cambridge councillors. It is a big issue for Cambridge, and I would see that there's a certain value, particularly in the lead up to the election, to have all 4 of the Cambridge councillors that are restanding to be part of the work leading up to the time of the election, so that whoever is on the committee going forward is actually totally up with the play.
Clear. Thanks, Roger.
Thanks for those thoughts, Roger. I can't agree with it though. This is an issue for Waipa, and we've sort of covered why it's an issue for Waipa. It is a really massive step for us all, and so I wouldn't support so many being restricted to Cambridge councillors or having such a large input into it. And I'm taking on board what you said, that perhaps I haven't given you a fair hearing on the fact that you've been active in this space already. But what I really seek from Rachel is the evidence that will be used in this process, because you in the past, Councillor Gordon did raise some issues around the evidence that or the data that had been used to support various decisions, I guess, because who determines what evidence is collected during this business case? Is it specialists like you and Waka Kotahi, or is it something that the whole stakeholder group has a say in, so that we can be confident that the evidence that is used to support this is acceptable to all parties? Because I don't want there to be debate among the stakeholder group about whether or not the evidence that is presented that will be, you know, informing our actions is appropriate or acceptable or accurate enough.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Cynthia. I mean, it's a really good point, but I think we also, through the business case process, we need to turn it around, and we need to start talking about the problems as a stakeholder group, and the evidence side of things will come in and support the problems. So we need to turn it that way, rather than actually having the evidence with, you know, we know through our work through the transport strategy that there are some limitations to the data that we have, but that's our way of collecting our transport modelling, and it's an agreed way forward that a number of the business case process uses and the strategies and plans around the region. So I think, you know, we'll start with identifying those problems, the benefits, the alternatives, coming up with the options, but that evidence will come and sit in behind the story that comes in, rather than being a key. I mean, it is a critical piece of work, but it's not the key. It'll be a supporting evidence, we'll call it. And that's exactly how the Western Arterial project worked, with consultants bringing forward and running, you know, transport modelling, looking at traffic volume information that supported those problems and benefits through that process.
That sounds a bit like a co-design project that's based on the community. Yeah, thanks.
Michael?
Thank you, through the chair. Yeah, I think, you know, what are the problems? Probably the easy bit. But this group, whoever's on this group, it's really the why the problem's there, and then it's the how, and that's where I guess this group, but also these flash consultants will obviously help lead us. But it really is, it's not the what's always the easy bit, it's the why. Why is the issue? And that's the in-depth bit, and that's where I think hopefully some rich learning and some rich ideas are going to come from. And yeah, I expect this will lead us in directions that we really, but should lead us in directions we have not thought of, because none of us have actually put in-depth thoughts as a collective, as a think tank, into some of the whys, the what's are the easy bits.
Thanks, Mike. Okay, there's a couple of decisions here. Are we looking to have somebody from the Cambridge Community Board? Because I was thinking of a little addition in the bottom of C to include that.
I guess I'm thinking in my mind through a timeline. We do want to make sure that we get this one workshop happening before the beginning of October. I wonder if maybe I undertake to contact the community board chair and have a chat with them in terms of whether the chair is able to participate in the first workshop, but then this becomes part of our discussion going into the next triennium in terms of locking in a person nominated from within the community board.
Well, our board meeting is at early September, our last meeting. Mm-hmm. So we should be able to get something in there which would cater for you to getting into that first.
Okay.
Meeting. Do you agree with that?
Yeah.
This week. So we put that in here, that can be an agenda item for the board at our last meeting in September. And then it's official. Yeah, thank you, Claire.
I certainly support the involvement of the community board, because could we just add it to the resolution, not necessarily for the membership, but just that we agree that the Cambridge Community Board should be involved in it.
Yeah.
In the process. Yeah.
No, I think you need to have a point person.
Yeah.
Yeah, make it. Can we do that? Right. And the second is with the discussion about the number of Cambridge councillors on there. Susan's has already suggested 3 people. Michael, are you feeling like you need to be on there?
I think 3 need to be on there. Yeah. And I am happy with the split. I understand what we're saying. It's a community, it's a YPAR project. It's a YPAR project to me because of funding. Yeah. That's pretty much where it stops, sorry.
Thank you.
You folks over here aren't getting the heat that everyone in Cambridge is getting. So financially, absolutely.
Yeah.
But in terms of being with the actioners and feeling the heat and actually getting the feedback, I think that balance, I think we've got it right, whoever's on there.
I agree.
Yeah.
So Susan, are you
I'm happy to vote.
are you looking to nominate those three?
Yeah, I am.
Sorry. Oh, hang on, Bill's got his hand up. Sorry, Bill.
We've talked about the Cambridge Community Board. And, you know, I'm just sitting here as the Kanohi rep, or one Kanohi rep. And, you know, and I look at Puto, and she's a member of one of the council committees. And yet this resolution would exclude Puto from being there as a Waipa District Council representative. She would probably come through on the mana whenua side. But, you know, like if the council is truly looking to be in partnership and we have these positions on council for the partnership components of it, why is it that the Kanohi reps aren't actually considered as being considered in the same way as councillors are being considered in this debate?
Well, I understood from what Rachel said that Gary Knighton is, what do you call it, liaising with iwi and that, is that, I don't know how it works.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll go through Gary and he'll be able to guide us as to he'll be contacting the iwi to identify those people.
Sorry, I think the council's is misunderstanding the principle that I'm trying to raise here. This shouldn't be an issue that Gary Knighton as a relationship manager is discussing. It should be understood here at this table. And, you know, we've said, okay, we want to have Kanohi representatives there to be part of this table and part of this decision-making. But when it comes to something like this, the Kanohi aren't represented in the three people that are there, that are being proposed by council. Community board, rightfully so, is now being considered. So I'm just saying, why can't the Kanohi reps that have been appointed by by Naiwi or Naiwi Tōpu be considered in the same way as council is being considered right now? Councillors are being considered right now. That's the principle.
I don't mind doing a credit list.
Okay. No, go for it.
So,
we don't grow without.
Yeah, I know exactly, without decent debate. So I just want to get some clarification. So, right, so Te Kahanui is represented from iwi, or put forward from iwi, is that correct?
The Kanohi reps have been determined by Naiwi Tōpu.
Yeah.
Okay.
Which
is the collective of Waikato Tainui, Maniputo, and all of the other hapu and mana whenua from the district. And you know, Claire makes the point about, and I think a very good point about, you know, Waipa wide. I would probably argue that we are Waipa wide because we've been elected by that group or selected by that group to serve at this table. But you know, that's the point I'm making, is that if we're to serve at this table, then shouldn't we be considered in the same way?
So, Bill, would it offend in the iwi then if the Kahanui rep came on, but other iwi didn't come on? What you're saying is you want both? But would it be offensive if it was as of right? Because you brought up a very good point. You're elected here by iwi, you know, through a process to represent iwi.
Yep, and there's other legislation, the treaty alone, that would say that according to this paper, there should be mana whenua represented on this project. What I'm saying is, sitting here at this table, we're discussing who the council representatives should be, and should Kanohi representatives be excluded from being part of a council representative on this committee? Should we exclude them? Or exclude me, exclude us. Sorry.
Well, I would actually automatically thought that you would be representing them as the person around the table.
From iwi and mana whenua.
Yeah.
That may, and Puto could well be there. I'm not saying it will be me or any of the other three. I'm just saying it's a bit different when you're talking about the principle of council representation here at the table, and Kanohi aren't considered as part of that.
But just to
Hang on.
clarify, so can I just clarify? So in theory though, could there be Te Kahanui plus 4 iwi representatives potentially? Is that what we're saying on this committee?
The paper just says that there'll be 1 representative for all of iwi. So I can't answer that question for you, Mike. I didn't put that forward.
No.
But it may well be that there are a number of, and it could well depend upon where this crossing is going to go and what that crossing might look like, as you say. I can't tell you that there'll be 4. That's for mana whenua to determine. I'm just saying in terms of the council's position, should there be an exclusion?
Because often...
And that's the way I see it. As an exclusion.
No, I understand that. Because often Ngāti Hawa and Ngāti Koriki Kahukura have sort of, I've been on committees where there's been 1 representative and basically one iwi said, you've got the mana to take out. So I guess there's a possibility of that to happen too in this. But those discussions will be outside of this room.
Susan?
No, sorry, I accidentally knocked my hand.
Thank you. Andrew?
Thanks, Graham. Yeah, Bill, look, I take your point, but I'm sitting there thinking that this committee, which you were a part of, and you would be included, like it says councillor, but being a member of this committee, that's not meant to exclude you from being potentially one of the appointees to this. As to the other representatives, well, they're not part of this committee. Yeah, it is a little, and I guess that's one of the issues about having separate appointees to separate committees. But yeah, that's, I would see Bill, you as being absolutely part of the group that's available to be selected to be appointed to this.
Can
Roger?
I, through you, Mr. Chairman, and Bill, just see if I've got this right. You're suggesting on basically the philosophy of Te Kahanui as a representative member around the table. Would it therefore, as we have said, that 1 community board member be part of this group, that similarly 1 of the Te Kanohi representatives be part of the group? So that would make it a formal appointment membership.
Yeah.
So that would become the 3 councillors, the community board rep, and a Te Kanohi rep. Would seem to solve the issue.
Got no issues with that.
I'm in agreement, Chair, through with Councillor Gordon, and I think that it should be left to Te Kanohi to elect the person that they feel best to represent all of their group on that. So we're talking of having a community board member, and I think Te Kanohi can actually ask and consult with themselves and elect an individual to go on there with the community board. So that gives us a total, as I see it, of about 5 people. We've got 3 councillors, Te Kanohi, and a community board. I think that's an operational size.
28 in total. 28 in total.
As long as we don't end up with a camel.
Right. There's a lot of typing going on here. Just hang on. Yep, perfect. Yep. Yeah, can you put it up? Yeah. Yep. Oh, just read it out. Just read it out for time. We're running. Yeah. This is on C. Oh, yeah. There she is. Look at that. Look all right?
Yeah.
Thank you, Luke. Cool. Sorry.
query to it. Is Liz actually willing to?
There's a little bit of banter going on this side. Look, I guess my feeling is that either Jim or myself would be useful, well, not useful, but we should be, really fronting this and being and getting into the detail of it. So that's probably where I'm feeling that, we need to ensure that we've got a really strong committee, as I said earlier, a focus group going forward. And I appreciate all the comments that Bill has said as well, very timely. And I think I'm looking at this project, the stakeholder group now. Yes, it's getting large, but I think perhaps it just needs to be initially. And as we go through, we can perhaps make some amendments or fine tune it as necessary.
Yeah. Okay. So we have a movement in Lou and a second by Bill. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Against, carried. Thank you so much. Great discussion. Tab 8 is, Sally. Good to see you, Sal. Floor is yours. According to my schedule, you've got 4 minutes.
I'll keep it brief.
Sorry, it's actually 5. Are you good?
Good morning, everybody. So I will take my waste assessment as read, and it was a bit of light reading for some people there. It was quite in depth, but it is a 6-yearly statutory document required by the government. It is our contextual look at where we are now. It does look back over the past 6 years, and it does look into the future of future trends and future demands that we are under the Waste Act responsible to look into. And it kind of all flows through towards the end to a gaps analysis and then and some options assessment. And we are having a workshop on the options next month. So we can, my main part of that is to get a steer from you out of all the options, like what ones you want to put into the waste minimisation and management plan. Not that they're going to end up in that's the result, but it's even to put in, investigate, work on, look into, because if it's not in our waste minimisation and management plan, we can't use our waste levy to work on that. And so that's the kind of key thing. So it is the waste minimisation management plan, also a 6-yearly document. So we have to make sure we get the right things in there to give us the scope to work on what we need to for the next 6 years. Yeah, but if there was any questions of individual bits that you wanted to find out a bit more, I can see Claire nodding.
Thanks, Claire.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chair. Great report. Really love the work that you're doing, Sally. The question I had was on page 81, really around, are we doing enough for our businesses? Yeah, like I think you've mentioned that there's been a little bit on offer, mainly I think private. Yeah, but like they can produce a lot of waste. Yeah, and so what are your thoughts there? Could we be doing more?
Yeah, I definitely think that's one that was showing up as a bit of a weaker spot, and I'm very hopeful with all this new waste levy that as we actually get paid more from the government, and once they commit to what that split's going to be like, and we can kind of predict into the future, that Brian Thorne and I can start to plan to hopefully grow the team. And I would love to see somebody working on business, particularly construction and demolition, but also commercial. So definitely.
Do you feel that you've been able to listen or find out from businesses what they're needing? Like, I don't know if you've even had the chance, like if you...
So I have done quite a bit of work with the council, the Chamber of Commerce in Cambridge, and they've applied for a couple of projects, and I've kind of worked with them. I've just met Shane Walsh a couple of times from the new acting CEO for the TA Chamber. And I went in Hamilton yesterday to a tourism, sustainable tourism, and they had waste. But it is my job. I guess my key thing is capacity. So that's why I'm always like, in here I kind of bring it through in those options that, to grow the team and actually put some of our new waste levy funding or possibly rates funding into more people in our team, then we can do more.
Yeah, okay, cool. No, thank you.
Sally, the only thing that I'm concerned about, I wouldn't like to see ratepayer money going into legitimate businesses, because their waste minimisation and their cardboard and everything like that, that is a legitimate business cost to that business. And when we set up our recycling and our cardboard, we were very, very specific that we weren't doing a pickup from the ratepayer money to the businesses. That was their call. So yeah, I just brought that up as having been part of that earlier on. Yeah, there was an expectation from the businesses that we would do that. But no, you know, when you go in the streets early in the morning, you see Full Circle out there picking up their cardboard and they're doing their own thing at their cost. It's all, yeah.
I think that's a wider discussion and maybe something that we could look at. We could put it in the WMMP to do the work and look at it maybe next time we strike our contract.
Yeah.
The issue with businesses and recycling is their volumes are vastly different. So from a small accounting firm in the pub down the road, we can't manage that. And so having bespoke servicing is extremely expensive. So, so I think that could be something we could maybe look at around the next contract. And it's even just really hard to, you know, for the food waste project that we just did, I asked the rates team, how many rated businesses do we have? You know, it's hard to even get the data. So maybe a little bit of early work needs to be done on, you know, like where they are and how many, because it's all around mapping and stuff for services. I'm living only 50 metres from the warehouse at 5 o'clock on a Monday morning. Waste management comes in and they got 4 massive containers full of cardboard. And I mean, that's almost a truckload, if you know what I mean. So I see where you're coming from and not knowing what they're going to have. So sometimes, in some ways, that's kind of been our kind of go-to, is that it is better for them to contract their own services because they can decide if they're cardboard heavy, they get the big cardboard crates. If they're glass heavy, they get glass servicing. So it's often not the place. I haven't seen that in a lot of places where they service CBDs and businesses, councils, because of the nature of that. But it doesn't mean that there's not a lot more that we can do to work with those bigger places to see if we can reduce their waste at the outset.
You would have thought, as a legitimate business like my farm, you would have that in your business plan. You know, we have a allocation and whatever.
It's a BAU cost. Waste management, waste management, recycling, whatever.
Lou.
Firstly, through you, Chair, I'd very, very much like to thank you, Sally, for a very good report. I just want to ask a third question, and that was, do you foresee charges being put on to products so that the people actually retailing them will actually have to grant that back so the government can utilise this to fund it? Because I've seen a lot of paperwork in the background at the moment suggesting that the government is going to recover this money through charges, offset charges, where they are actually with your cardboard heavy or whatever, to actually fund the actual facility.
So Lou, that's covered under 6.2.6 regulated product stewardship. So at the moment they've only picked 6 products, but they're very broad, including e-waste, electronic waste, including degassing, plastic packaging as a category, so that's massive. Now I'm like, they're falling out of my head. Hopefully I've got a list here. I do. Tyres and batteries, large batteries, farm plastics, and agri-chemicals and containers. So that's the first 6, and they are progressing those along, and they're all at various different stages. So that's where, you know, you buy your TV, you pay $10 already, and then urban miners could be a registered licensed take back scheme, and they get the $10 when they recycle it correctly because it's already been paid for. So it's all captured within a scheme. So you're not trying to ask the consumer at the end when they're trying to get rid of their fridge, "I'll give us $10." So so that's definitely coming in. So I can definitely see that on those more problematic waste streams.
Michael.
Yeah, it's not really a question, just a sort of a clarification or a statement, Sally. Again, thanks for your in-depth report, and it was really interesting. Just table 5, I'm not quite sure what page, I think it's page 77 of our agenda. Just the population's gone up, and we've gone from sort of 73 kgs of curbside recycling down to 30 kgs, and then over the page there's some explanation around that about, you know, China not taking as much recycling. There was some contamination and all the rest of it, but it just seems like a massive drop, and I'm assuming because of plastics 3, 4, 6 and 7, that's now going into waste.
I don't think it is mostly plastics 3, 4, 6 and 7, because when you look at all plastics in the home, they're a very small percentage. I believe it was around 4.8% of all plastics is plastics 3, 4, 6 and 7. Over 80% is 1s and 2s, they're by far. I think a lot of this data, it's very hard for us because we change from one service to another. I think a lot of it came down to the paper weight, because when I look at the data that we have from 2017, when I did this, the audit, our paper weight in that 1 year audit was really high compared to when I look at the national stats. So whether the paper was wet that day, whether we'd had some windy days before and they'd held it a couple of weeks and then they put out a massive pile, because that was when we put it out beside the crate. I feel like my instinct is it's the paper that's pushing us up, but it's really hard because we don't have a lot of data sets. So we've only done 2 solid waste assessments ever. And that's been in the past 6 years of this, that we've reviewed here. And we will carry on doing that, because the more we do audits, the more stronger our data set is, and we understand exactly what people are putting in and what they're not putting in the recycling and what's remaining in the wheelie bin. So that actually went up a little bit. The recyclable paper is about 1 kg in our wheelie bin, could have come out and been in the rubbish. Sorry, there's about 1 kg of rubbish of paper. Yeah, should have been recycled. Yeah.
Yeah, it's good to, you've obviously done some thinking around that, because the figures obviously.
I know, it was disappointing because I was expecting it to go up because, we've got a bigger capacity, but I think it is really hard to compare data to just 2 individual data points from different systems. But
Hey, Sally, there was a whole lot of stuff, being delivered by couriers, a lot of packaging.
Yeah.
And I saw a lot of my neighbours that couldn't get their cardboard. So it was going in the rubbish one, just,
back in the old system or now?
Now, during the lockdown.
Oh.
Yeah, a lot of it, like the people were just, the couriers run off their feet.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
we noted that as well. And I went down to our sorting centre midway through that lockdown, and they just said they were backed up. I usually see if the shed is that long, our pile is there. It was to the end. I had never seen it like that. And they said it's all cardboard. And it was from that being locked in and online deliveries, and they all come packaged, and cardboard is very bulky and it really takes up a lot of space. So that's one of our interesting trends, is the way we shop is different. And that, like I added a bit of that in the future trends. It's like a lot of people are shopping online and buying things overseas, clothing that they've never tried on. Oh, it doesn't quite suit me, just chuck it out because it was $3. Like people do that. It's very interesting times with waste, and a lot's happening. So
And Sally, do you think you're making some progress on the contamination issue?
I haven't touched base on that lately, but we're very excited to get the auditors back.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's the key. We've done a lot of education and we'll keep doing that, but I think we need the dual arm of finding those people to target our education exactly too. So that'll be they'll be very relieved down at the Recycling Sorting Centre to have our auditors back. And that's I'd put a bit of money forward with Brian from the extra waste levy, because that's a big way for us to reduce our landfill, reduce our contamination.
Did you see the Rabobank report that 13% of all the food that we buy is going in the dump?
Yeah, I haven't read the report myself, but
it's worth about $3.1 billion.
Yeah.
Boy, oh boy.
So I think that's industry wide, not just so that's from, growing to sorting to packaging. But we see that through our stats in the household as well, but it is, from the paddock to the plate, there's waste all the way along that stream. And I think that's something we'd want to keep working on, because it's been indicated by government that businesses will have to separate their food waste. So, the UK's done some cool work around re-promoting doggy bags, and, people take home half your meal if you can't eat it, or reduce your serving sizes. So there's just, how long is our piece of string? But
Michael?
I should have reduced my serving size on Saturday night when I had to shoot a kilo of lamb at Alpino. It was very nice too. But I'd just like to move that we receive these reports of Sally's.
So can I, just before we do that, on B, Sally, does that read correctly, that you've got the Waste Assessment 2022 report will inform the review? Does that read right, or is that just me?
I thought maybe inform the development of the waste minimisation and
is that just me, or can you clear your one? Did you read it?
Okay.
Don't worry. Daniel's still the old chairman.
Yep. Okay, and I'll look forward to getting a bit more in depth with the options. So do peruse those tables, and I'll see you next month.
Okay, thank you. Mike, second. Thank you, Lou. All those in favour say aye. Against, carried. Thank you so much, Sally. Your passion does not diminish. Okay, we'll break for a